Welcome to Working on Wellness, Health and Mind's bi-weekly wellness podcast where we discuss wellness through the lenses of mindfulness, mental health, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and healthy relationships. We're stoked you're with us today as we meet with Chelsea Young. Chelsea is a certified life coach who works with her clients on wellness, anger, relationships, parenting, and more. We'd like to remind you that you can learn more about the 6 tenets of wellness and how to get connected with us here at Health and Mind by clicking the link in the show notes. Chelsea, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about anger specifically. We haven't talked about it on the podcast yet, but let's just start with kind of an overview about how you got to the place you're in and a little bit about Inspire.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about how I got here first. So when I was in middle school and high school, middle school first, I started experiencing a lot of anxiety and really not knowing what that was, even though it was like showing up for me in different ways in my body. And as I would begin to speak at like church functions or in school, I just didn't know what was going on inside of me or whatnot. So as I kept, moving on and trying to just restart, like, okay, I'm experiencing this, but let me just try to keep going. My parents were pushing me, oh, you still have to read this scripture at church. You still have to do this prayer at church. You still have to do these different performances at school. So still trying to show up and, please them. So I kept going, but I still struggled with it each and every time. So as I became an adult, that's when I really found out that I was really struggling with anxiety. And it took until then to kind of develop those coping skills and really open up and be vulnerable. So that's what led me to ultimately creating the mentorship program that I have, which is called Inspire RVA Mentor, where we just create safe spaces for you to kind of open up and just express different topics. We try to expose them to new experiences, and then just, share the space with like-minded individuals, invite them in to come speak with them as well. And then there's Inspire RVA Life Coaching, where my goal is just to empower adults to become their best self. And how I got started with that was just working in the criminal justice system as a probation officer, as a counselor in the group home, and just seeing how it's very important to be connected to people that know something about something, that can help you have your genuine interest at heart and just want to see you grow as an individual. So that's in short, my background, who I am, and what I do.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with me. It's almost a shame that we're talking about just one anger subject because I would love to just hear more about your background. That just sounds like
Yeah.
such a cool story.
Mhm.
And it makes a lot of sense to me now why you are inspired to inspire, like because
Exactly. And
yeah,
anger is like one of my favorite things to kind of talk about, because that's where I started in the field, in my career work. Is I started with anger management courses, but then I seen the need that it's really bigger than that. It's deeper than that, right? We know that anger is that secondary emotion. So, how do you deal with guilt? How do you deal with shame? Communication skills, it can be broken down into so much. So, those 12 sessions of anger management was really superficial. And I prefer to kind of work with people on a more one on one basis to kind of address those things. Versus just, superficially addressing things where you couldn't get to the root of it all, or more in depth.
and along the lines of what you do already, creating safe spaces to have these conversations, anger is a conversation that I feel is swept under the rug a lot of times, and it's dealt with when either you have
Mhm.
anger or somebody in your life has anger. Some people shrug it off and say that's just them or that's just how I am. If
Mhm.
someone comes to you and is saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with anger," how do you start to work with them? What's step one?
I think I'd like to start working backwards. So, looking at those generational things, like how did you see anger growing up as a kid, and just kind of looking at, what didn't you like about how they expressed it? And oftentimes you see that they're actually acting out the way they seen it, and oftentimes it's not what they like to do, but that's the only way that they know. So oftentimes we start working backwards from the beginning and work our way forward. And then ultimately just trying to take precautions, learn how to take precautions to even get in there. So addressing that self-care pieces daily, weekly, uh, learning how to communicate, even and not just holding it in or what is it called, compressing things and internalizing things, but really bringing it out and speaking about it and learning how to do that in a more healthy way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And usually, you mentioned how anger is a secondary emotion. Typically, it seems in my life, it comes out around me when people don't feel like they have the ability to express it any other way. So it sounds like
Absolutely.
you're giving people those tools. And I'm wondering, what's the healthiest way to process anger if you find yourself in a space where it doesn't seem like you can talk it out, or what can you do, or what sort of coping skills, I guess, do you have people start with?
I think that one of the things that people forget or not do is really do the things that you find joy in all the time. And I think sometimes we forget to be a kid again. Some of the things that I like to do or find joy in is things that I done as a kid, going outside, being in nature, swinging on the swing, like not forgetting to do those things. And I think also journaling. Some people look at that as, oh, I'm back in. I oftentimes hear people say, oh, I feel like I'm back in school again, or things of that nature. But drawing, like I said, being in nature, sitting outside, just being in that, state of peace. And then also, I would say too, is learning how to feel your feelings and deal with your feelings. So identifying what is it that I'm feeling? What do I need right now? Just really sitting with yourself are some of the things that we oftentimes, they're there. We just kind of forget about them. And even self-forgiveness, like I said, just practicing those things on a daily basis, finding time to sit with yourself, even exercising is something that we take for granted. Uh, so just incorporating all of those coping skills, making sure that my clients know the importance of doing those everyday things, implementing them every day, every week.
I could see, based on your description of all these important factors, that it would probably depend a lot on the individual and their history, what their childhood was like.
Absolutely.
And so I
Absolutely.
could see how you working with a client would be very much getting to know who they are first and what anger is like for
Absolutely.
them. What are the different ways you see anger manifesting? What are different ways that you've seen it show up as far as what it looks like?
I would say in more destructive ways, arguing, yelling, of course, but then really understanding that anger also shows up as being silent, withholding your feelings, not expressing yourself, ignoring. So, in those ways, I think that a lot of times we know that anger looks like, again, yelling, arguing, in those more destructive ways, but also acknowledging that anger is also being silent in those more subtle ways as well.
I found myself personally being more on the latter end of things. I'm not somebody that blows up on anybody, but I
Mhm,
will feel a certain way and
mhm,
just be worried about the consequences of expressing it, or being too
mhm.
hot emotionally to actually say it. And
Absolutely.
I wonder about people that think that's a safer option. What would you say to folks that think it's a lot better to just keep all this in? What would you say to them?
People that think it's okay to bottle up things. I think that what I often hear a lot is hurt people hurt people. So
Mm.
even though if you don't address it in a more, I hate to say, proper way or correct way, if you don't, you oftentimes bleed on other people who is not intended to harm, like your family, like your friends, or maybe at work. So let's work through it. Let's address it so that we are not harming those who we are not intentionally trying to harm or hurt.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make, that the hurt doesn't just go away. It goes somewhere. And processing
Absolutely.
it in some of the ways you've mentioned allow it to have an outlet that's healthy.
Mhm.
And practicing these coping skills probably gives you the mental clarity to express what you need to in a more useful way, an easier to hear way by other people than the
Hmm.
silent treatment or to blow up on them. That makes a lot of
Absolutely.
sense. I've heard
Yeah.
something about anger I've always been really curious about. I wonder if you see this, is that anger can be addictive. I've never understood that. Have you heard about that? That anger can be addictive?
Anger can be addictive. That's a good one. I think that people, if you don't identify those things within from your childhood, I do feel like you can get into a habit of kind of like a get back kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like um like a one up on somebody, or I got you, or like with communicating, like wanting to win or get the upper hand on someone. I think that can be very addictive. Like I gotta win, or I gotta have the upper hand in an argument, or even in a fight, or yelling. Even in all those aspects of anger, I think that can be very addictive.
So,
Mm-hmm.
a couple things I wanted to point out about what I've heard on it. I'm no anger expert. What you're
Mm-hmm.
saying resonates a ton, especially with that idea of it being a secondary emotion. When we think
Mm-hmm.
about shame and guilt, we want
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of that feeling somehow. And by
Absolutely.
being angry, we can project those negative feelings that are internal towards
Mm-hmm.
something else through yelling, arguing, making someone feel worse than we currently feel. I've heard that the addictive part of it comes in because it's also taking the anxiety within and putting it without. And that in the moment makes us feel like we feel better for some reason with
Mm-hmm.
that. And so whenever we feel those negative emotions, we can jump to the anger and it's like a quick relief.
That is true. I can see that. I
You
can
see
see
that
that.
with people?
I never heard it that way. But that is absolutely true. It can be kind of misplaced.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've worked with a gentleman who works with clients in anger management, and
Hmm.
we were just he was a clinician that was in the practice I was working at, and he shared a little bit about that
Hmm.
part, and I just blew my mind. I'd never thought about anger as something. I
Yeah,
always thought about
me
it as
either.
something that you wanted to get away from as fast as
Hmm.
possible.
Right, right.
But
But
there's
I
a
guess
reason
if
people
you're
do things
doing
like
it
that.
the same way over and over, you can get used to it or accustomed to it, and begin to enjoy it, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Another, you said you've worked in the correctional systems, and
Absolutely.
something I've heard from folks that have been in jail that I've worked with is that they begin to crave the food they had in jail, even though
Yes, that's true.
it's not super nutritious. Maybe most people on the outside would think it's not very tasty,
Hmm.
but your body just
Hmm.
gets used to it. So,
Right. So you come home and you're fixing the ramen noodles and all
right.
of that, forgetting that, hey, I can eat, better food now. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, totally. So, do you ever have people that come in, say, for life coaching, and then you notice the anger's kind of there and people don't see it as a problem? Do you ever get people that don't feel that anger is something to address?
Uh, I get people who oftentimes don't feel like it can be controlled, or that, it can be fixed. I don't feel that, this is an issue that can be fixed. I do see that a lot. So yeah, people, you know, I haven't got people who doesn't see it as an issue. I do see a lot of times people say, yeah, I am blowing up quite a bit. I am, getting into, like I said, I worked in the legal field a lot too. So I see people say, what, this has become a pattern with assault and batteries, or more serious offenses. So it's like, yes, I do have a problem, but, I've been doing it so long, how can, this be fixed? I do hear that a lot, or have heard it a lot, because a lot of our referrals do come from the courts for the anger management class.
the, when you were saying that, the idea of identity came up for me and identifying
Mm-hmm.
with that way of responding to negative feelings. That's such a big part of our life, negative feelings.
Mm-hmm.
We start to identify as someone that's angry.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine there'd be resistance in going in and trying
Right,
to work with that and change that.
right. And absolutely. And then what I just thought of, Henry, when you said that, is people not really being able to even identify emotions outside of I'm okay, or being able to identify exactly what it is that they are feeling. That is another hard thing, and something that needs to honestly be addressed. it's important to be able to know what it is that you are feeling beyond just mad, angry, sad, okay, you know.
Yeah. The treatment you seem to do with folks that are dealing with anger sounds a lot
Mhm,
like typical therapy approaches where you're
mhm.
looking at the whole person and all the facets of their life and finding avenues for them to process things in more healthy ways. Um,
Absolutely.
Now, I understand you're a life coach. You're not a
Mhm.
therapist.
Right. So we deal with more so the more superficial stuff as a life coach in addressing goals and empower them and believing that they are the experts of their life. So just kind of bringing it out of them. But also, I do feel that I am a gateway to counseling and therapy and just opening up those doors because there is a huge stigma on even receiving help in general. So, oftentimes, one of their goals is to uh, get a therapist or look for a counselor or things of that nature and report back and see how we can kind of move forward as a goal.
Very cool. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely see life coaching and therapy as sort of running a parallel race when it comes to
Yes.
helping people. A
Yes.
lot of similarities,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely some different
Mm-hmm.
aspects. And as I'm a resident in counseling, so I'm
Okay,
becoming a
good.
therapist. And
Uh-huh.
definitely what you said about the client being the expert, that's something we say a lot too. How they are
Right.
the ones that know the most about their life and know the most about
Mhm.
themselves, and so they're the best person to go to
Right,
for
right.
ideas on how to move forward and for goals and all of that. Um,
Mhm.
I guess another question I have, it's sort of in the therapy vein, I guess.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think of mindfulness a lot and how that's sort of the total opposite of someone flying off the handle,
Mhm.
enraged. Just somebody
Mhm.
sitting peacefully meditating or doing a body scan or something to that nature.
Mhm.
Do you use any mindfulness in your uh, help?
Absolutely. I am a certified I'm certified in meditation and yoga. So
Oh,
that is something that I like to do. I love to be in nature. So that's something that I do with my mentorship program as well as my life coaching practice is we spend a lot of time outside. A lot of our sessions are outside and we're journaling and we're practicing mindful meditation. And the good thing too is that we have resources such as YouTube, which is a great resource. So sometimes for their, I like to call them commitments instead of homework assignments, but for their commitments to or their take home work, they'll be expected to kind of meditate and journal and process whatever that it is. Or even I would give them a prompt to kind of meditate over. So that is something that we do incorporate, and it's very, very important to, like I said, incorporate those things weekly, daily, so that when anger does show up, because honestly, we all get angry. It's how you respond to that, right? So incorporating those things on a weekly, a daily basis, monthly basis, decreases your chances of that anger showing up in a more aggressive way.
mm, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Very cool. That's so cool that you are certified in meditation and yoga.
Yeah, I love it so much. And honestly, I haven't gotten very comfortable facilitating it. I think I did the yoga. Maybe I can probably count on one hand how many times I've done it with other people. I haven't gotten too comfortable with it yet. But the meditation is something that I incorporate very often.
Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
curious what was most helpful on your journey with mental health and just feeling better. What sort of tools helped you the most?
Reconnecting with my childhood, like I said, journaling, uh, getting connected with a therapist. And like I said, just utilizing all of those coping skills. And like I said, connected with my childhood, doing things that I love to do as a child now, even taking some time to self reflect in the morning, affirmations, just taking time for myself all the time as much as possible. And I know it sounds crazy, but it has helped me so much. I get very anxious, even still. It still happens all the time, and I have to find ways to really address that before, because if not, it would have showed up in this interview. I would have been really shaky, really nervous. So I really have to make sure that I'm really staying on top of my mental health so that it doesn't, show up and affect me.
Good for you. You've made it your mission, it sounds like, to.
Absolutely. I feel like I can't really be helpful to anybody else if I'm not helpful to myself. So I definitely have to take care of myself so that I can be whole and help other people. Um,
Yeah.
Me first.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Hmm.
I've had some anxiety in my life, but it didn't show up until college because that was around the time I was treating my body
Hmm.
horribly, and
Hmm.
it finally caught up to me, and I started to
Hmm.
experience it, and I realized that I can't be a good friend if while I'm talking to somebody, all that's going on is I'm in my head, wondering how to
Absolutely.
respond. I'm not really with the person, and so
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
disconnect I felt from other people was such a
Hmm.
catalyst to go, okay, what's going on? And then I really became certain that our mental experience is the filter through which everything happens for us. All of our experiences is through how, healthy we are or how unhealthy we are.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I really respect that, from a young age, you've experienced anxiety and you've continued
Hmm.
to work on yourself and put yourself first, and that's allowed you to help so many others do the same thing. Something you mentioned,
Absolutely.
something you mentioned that really like brought up a question in my mind was, you've talked about going back to childhood with folks and childhood with yourself, and I know you
Mhm.
have this youth mentorship program. I'm wondering a little bit more like how that process works, like what you do with the youth, and then also what does it look like working with kids on anger versus adults? How do you, are they any different?
Okay. Honestly, it hasn't been a difference really. Um, I think that I have to address the self care piece more and the asking for help piece more with adults more than with children. And I guess because kids are already, I mean, we already do like art stuff with them, we already do the self care piece with them. So it's not as much of addressing that with them because they're already doing it. They don't mind journaling. They don't mind being, expressing their creativity. So that's never really much of a problem. As with adults, they kind of forget to do things that bring them joy and things of that nature. Can you repeat that first question again for me?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I was curious about two things. You're addressing the second one right now, which is
Mm-hmm.
that the kids and adults, they don't differ too much. They just sort of differ in their needs and sort of their
Mm-hmm.
tendencies are slightly different. The first
Absolutely.
question I was asking about was your youth mentorship program. What
Mm-hmm.
does that look like? What is the youth mentorship program about?
Okay, perfect. So twice a month, it is free to the public, open to the public, K through 12 youth. Twice a month, we get together at the Ricky Johnson Foundation, which is located on 1804 East Belt Boulevard, in the cooler months. And then, as I stated, we're at Forest Hill Park. We're at various parks on the south side usually. Having kickball games, having some fun. But usually during our cooler months, we are facilitating different topics, whether it's communication skills, all various different topics. And then they are also connected to a individual mentor. Like I said, people who are in the community that want to get engaged and love to work with children. We invite them in and they can have access to the youth can have an access to a individual mentor. So that's how that works. Right now we have about 35 youth and 15 mentors. So we are definitely in need of more people to get involved. But it is what it is. We work with what we have. And like I said, we twice a month. Our next one is May 25th, and that is Art Night, Art on Wheels. If you've ever heard of them, they'll be coming out and sponsoring our youth night. And like I said, we are in the public, and it's free to the public. And we don't turn down any youth that want to come out and participate. We also provide transportation to get everyone there. We fill up our cars and we get as many youth because that is a barrier for us is or for the parents is transportation. But yeah, we get them there 6 to 7:30 on Wednesdays usually. Do the youth night. They eat, they're fed, and we facilitate that topic and play a game to coordinate with that. And then we take them home and try to get them home at a decent hour for school the next day.
That's incredible. That's so cool
Mhm.
that y'all do that. Um,
Yeah.
wow. I
And then for spring break, we also go different places. This past year, we went to New Jersey. Before that, we went to North Carolina. So, yeah, we're on our third spring break. I don't know what we'll be doing next year, but yeah, each year we try to create new experiences, take them different places, do different things, expose them to new opportunities.
gotcha.
Hmm.
You sound like you do quite a bit, yet you also are very focused on your self-care. Is it
Yeah.
difficult to schedule it all? Is it difficult to fit it all in a day?
I don't think so. Like 'cause I use a planner and I'm very detailed down to the T, even down to lunch breaks, even down to just making sure not to overlap anything and just taking that space that's needed. And if I can't do it, I can't do it, you know. But just making it work with the tools that I have. Like I said, having a planner is super helpful. Having a journal handy to anytime I feel like, oh, I'm getting overwhelmed, to write things down to get myself back on track. So again, just using those tools that are there to just be proactive.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Ironically, we haven't mentioned it yet, but I think that was another tool that helped me out a lot with my anxiety was just planning my day, just seeing it on paper.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have a dog who is so helpful as well. Every morning I open my arms up and he just give me like the biggest hug ever. And that just makes all the difference in my day. So just those little things that matter and that is helpful to just, making every day work.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just thank you for taking the time to speak to our listeners today. I know
Mhm.
you're a busy person and you're a really awesome example of someone that through working on themselves is now able to help so many other people in such a selfless and inspiring way.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
I'm really impressed just by
Hmm.
what you're doing, and I think it's really great.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to kind of open the floor for two different things. If there's
Mhm.
anything regarding anger that we haven't touched on that might be important to discuss, let's throw that in and do that. And then the second one would be any sort of contact information or what sort of clients you're seeing. I'd love to put that out there for the public as well, so they can get in contact with you.
Okay, absolutely. I don't think it was anything that we missed. I think we
Okay,
kind of covered the bases of everything.
cool.
But viewers can definitely reach out to me via inspirerva.com, which is our website, Inspire RVA on both Facebook and Instagram. Inspire RVA LLC at gmail.com is the email address. And all that information is on the website. Again, I'll repeat that if I was speaking too fast, but inspirerva.com. And anybody can reach out. Like I said, I'm a gateway to other resources. I like to connect people to therapy if needed, counseling if needed, whatever avenue. So definitely reach out if you need any sort of help in that. Like I said, I could be that gateway for you if needed. Um, and if you want to be involved and if you want to be a mentor or you're passionate about the community you live in, feel free to reach out to me. You don't have to work directly with the youth if you want to. We are always looking for people to provide transportation or even provide meals or just sponsor our youth night if that's something that a viewer is interested in. So there's different ways indirectly and directly that you can support Inspire RVA.
Excellent. And I'll put the Inspire RVA website in the description of the video as well so people can get to everything you mentioned from there. And um,
Awesome.
yeah, thank you again for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Henry. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to talk to you. And thank you to our WOW community for listening along. Feel free to follow us on Spotify or Google Podcasts for more episodes. For questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at intern@healthandmind.net. Lastly, don't forget to follow us on social media. We are on Instagram and Facebook as well at HIMRVA. And all you do, keep your health in mind.